Welcome to selfdiscoverywisdom.com, formerly known as Self-Discovery Media. On these podcasts, you're going to hear people who speak from the heart. They've taken the journey in life. Many things have happened to them, but they've changed it to happening for them. And in their strength, their courage, they've discovered their abilities and their wisdom, and they are now sharing it here with you. Do enjoy each show. We bring it to you with love and knowing that it's going to help you on your journey of life. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Mental Health Awareness right here on selfdiscoverywisdom.com. I'm your host, Sarah Troy. My guest today is Jaime Pineda. Am I pronouncing it correctly? We're going to be
Pineda,
talking
yeah.
Pineda. There we go. We're going to be talking about his new book, which is Controlling Mental Chaos, Harnessing the Power of the Creative Mind. Now, we live in chaos. It's a human nature for us to do so, and chaos is always around us. But he wants us to learn how to simply use time-tested techniques to control anxiety and recover the creative nature. And we're going to be talking about the segment Ideal Transformation of an Uncontrolled Mind into a Creative Mind in 4 simple steps. This is about the big idea, why it matters, the key matters, and the source. So we're going to talk all about that today. But, when we're looking at the creative mind and the chaotic mind, very often they kind of ride the same wave. From chaos comes creativity. But how can we also make sure that that's the path that it's taking and it's not leading us from one chaotic thing to another, and where we get anxious about it, because from chaos becomes the anxiety. How do we calm things down so we can get into the creative nature? So welcome to the show, Jaime. Gosh, is this a timely show?
Well, thank you. Happy to be here.
You know, um, some people look at chaos and they just want to eliminate it altogether.
Mhm.
There are some benefits to chaos, but it's making sure that chaos doesn't make you anxious, or that it doesn't it leads you around the road of panic rather than creativity. What do you think on that?
Yeah, so the my basic assumption is that we're born as creative creatures, basically,
Mm,
right? Our natural core is one that is energetic. You look at an infant, right? And they're
yes.
they're very open and creative. They respond to life in a very open way. Um, and that energy, that force, eventually gets covered up by something we'll talk about, which we call the ego or whatever,
Mm,
which then distorts this sort of creative energy. But that creative energy is we never lose it. It's
mm.
always there, and it's possible to recover it. And so this is my argument that in fact, if you're able to set aside certain things that are covering it up, you unmask what is in your nature, which is this sort of energetic, creative openness.
It's funny because we actually just did a show on creativity as well and how to bring
Well,
about the joy of creativity. And I think a
yeah.
lot of the time we let our creativity be controlled by exterior pressures, exterior dictation. And we don't understand that creativity is coming from within you, is the gift of who you are and what you're sharing for the benefit of others. And if we allow it to be controlled rather than allowing it to be the essence of who we are, it is something very stressful because we're never going to meet the goals of those expectations. But we
Mhm.
can meet the truth of our creativity if we do it organically and honestly.
Absolutely. And the what's unique, I think, is in the way I'm seeing it, is that what happens, I said, as an infant, basically this open, creative nature, but something interferes
Mm,
with the interpretation of the signals that it's getting, which we then call the ego.
mhm,
So the interpretation of the signals is what I think is what distorts the impulse, right? So if you're able to understand that and say, okay, how can I undistort that? That creativity is there. It's a natural, innate thing that we have. It's just part of us to be that creative. So
But we all have a signature in our
Yeah,
creativity, don't we? And it's understanding what that signature is, because we can have 10 different creatives in a room. Each one of them, has their
yeah.
own talent, their own skill. And I think, we're trying to kind of one size fits all instead of looking at the individual of what their creative gift is. Um, I have two grandchildren, 2.5 and 6 months, and watching my 2.5-month-old go into his imagination. And, we don't always kind of get what he's doing. He loves cars. He loves traffic jams for some reason. And, he loves parking them and driving them. And he'll drive them all over you if you're in the way of his road, and he's in his world. But then it's also wonderful to see him, where his world is taking him and what he's seeing and the wonderment and the self-discovery of who he is. Why do we
Right.
lose that? My theory
Yeah.
is that's what we get to society's dictation of religion, family's dictation of what you can and cannot do, schools, dictation of sit, listen, obey.
Hmm.
I think what we do is we knock out that creativity inside of us and actually ignite anxiety to try to meet someone else's expectation.
Yeah. Yeah. So to me, the ego is really the response that we have to protect ourselves when we're very vulnerable, right? As children, as infants, we have this, like I said, this openness, but it's very vulnerable to the insults that are coming in from the
Mm,
world. And so we begin to develop these strategies, these thoughts, these ways of reacting to prevent those hurts.
yes.
And that solidifies into what we then think of as our ego, as our personality. But it's really a set of constructs, ideas, and all that. And like I said, the signals that are coming in from the outside get distorted by that filter.
Yeah.
And the signals that are coming from our interior as well get
Hmm.
distorted by that filter. And this is where we then begin to um, try to understand these distorted signals, and we get anxious and fearful, and all that kind of stuff. When in fact, if we could set aside these filters, these signals are actually trying to tell us something, and we could learn from them, right?
Yes.
They're basic, powerful things that we need to learn to listen to and respond to,
Mhm.
right? But we
That
need
inner
to put
compass.
that,
Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
that's right. Yeah.
Why do we? I mean, is it just human nature that we allow ourselves uh, to bend to the will of others, to society itself? Uh, are we, as children, we have the spirit? Yes, it kind of gets knocked out of us, but at the same time, why is our spirit not speaking louder? That intuitiveness that lies within, why does that not speak louder than the exterior? Is the exterior just so part of our patterning that we don't recognize we're repeating? Um, because it just seems to be, we know this is the solution to ignite the interior and follow your
Yeah.
gut instincts, your spirit, your soul, heart, whatever. Um, and we know that we're better off when we do that. But why do we take so long to get there? What is it? What is the hold of that ego on the outside that stops us from embracing it?
That's a wonderful question, and I wish I knew the answer to it. But I think that the fact that as we get older, we begin to sense that there's something wrong, that there's something, an alternative to the way we think, to the way we respond, to the anger that we exhibit. We begin to sense that. I think that is the spirit trying to come through.
Mm,
But you're right. I mean, why did it take so long? Well, because the conditioning, I think, is so strong, that we undergo as children. When we don't really know, we're conditioned to respond a certain
yeah,
way, and that is quite strong. It's hard to get rid of. But as adults, we begin to realize that there's something wrong, and I think that that's the spirit trying to talk to us, and
right.
we need to listen to it. Yeah,
Earlier, folks, earlier,
yeah,
please.
yeah,
While you're raising your children, or when you know that I call it the nudge, nudge, wink, wink, of the universe trying to tell us, to go in a different direction. And sometimes we have to get the cosmic 2x4, before we kind of
yeah.
register that, hell, it's not working the way I'm going. I've got to listen in. But we have so much influence from the outside of you've got to be, you're only important if. There is
Mhm.
something innately in us that's always looking for that validation of who we are, approval, right?
Yes, yes. mean, it is unfortunate. I think we've structured our society in a way that is unhelpful. That it's prevent from really freeing ourselves from that conditioning, and it doesn't make it easy.
Hmm.
Yeah, and so yeah, all these signals that we're getting about you need to be important, you need to make a lot of money in order to be happy. That all those are these signals that the conditioning that occurs. Uh, but but I think it's important to, and this is why I think we'll probably get to it. It's
Hmm.
important to listen to that inner nature, and the way I suggest that the best way to do that is to just simply be present in the moment, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
because part of what happens when you're present in the moment, you bypass the conditioning, you bypass memories, and
Hmm.
you're just here, and you're
Hmm.
not listening to all that chatter that's
Yeah.
going on. And that's just a helpful exercise to get you to then listen more closely.
I mean, that kind of chaos that you talked about is like a whirlwind, isn't it? It's perpetually around us. And if we stop getting caught up in the whirlwind and being swept away and we go in and be still, that's the clarity comes in calmness. I mean, we've got to kind of
Yes.
step out of the tornado. But very often people don't realize they're actually in the tornado because it's just been a state of being, a state of living all their lives. And that's where the anxiety and the stress and the even depression comes about because the fatigue of constantly being in that tornado.
Yeah. So, creativity is unfocused at that point. And what we need to do is tend to it and focus it. And so, like, I was very anxious when I was very young. I had this anxiety disorder, if you will. And I would do anything to avoid it, to get rid of it, right? But as I grew up in it, as I practiced these techniques, what I learned is that anxiety could actually be a good friend.
Hmm.
You could actually use it in a positive way. And so it was no longer I need to get rid of it. It was how do I utilize this energy that I have? This anxiety is actually an energy, and I can direct it in a certain way that's more positive, right? So you don't necessarily have to think of these negative, chaotic
Hmm.
things as negative things. They're just unfocused creativity. That's the
Yes.
way I see it.
Make it an ally, not an enemy.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yes.
And that
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
comes down into slowing down enough to recognize what it is. Right. Again, when we're caught up in the emotion, and we say with emotions, they're there as an indication to how we feel at the moment. So let's observe how we feel at the moment so we can spend the emotion and not become emotional about the emotion. And I think a lot of
Yes.
the time we become emotional about something that we don't even register we're being emotional.
Yes. Yeah. That is the key. When you start feeling these emotions and you get caught up in them, as you say, you become emotional. You sort of move into that feeling and you become that feeling. I think that's the problem.
Hmm.
Now, if you're able to keep a distance, keep a separation between there's the emotion and here I am, and maintain that distance, you can treat it differently.
Yes.
And in fact, you can let it go much easier that way. But when you
Right.
become that emotion, it's
Hmm.
much more difficult. Yeah.
And that's where you're kind of really being the chaos, rather than the
Yes.
chaos serving you. And then
Yeah.
as you say, whenever you are completely in that kind of anxiety that allows your whole body just to tense right up, everything crunches. There is no chi, no energy running through you. There's no clarity. You don't find the answers when you're clenched. All right, you have to unwind and breathe in, take a breath, take a moment, take a pause. And in that then becomes the clarity of what you need to do. But we constantly are trying to find those solutions in the clenched state of being, and we can't do that.
Yeah, and knowing that ahead of time is a helpful thing. That is, if you know that you can actually, unclench,
Yeah.
right? When you're in the midst of something, you can tell yourself, okay, but there's another way that I can be, which
Yeah.
is not be it,
Yes.
but be outside of it. That's a wonderful, initial um, tool that you can use.
Yeah. all of these things are tools. So let's talk about the tools that you are
Yeah.
sharing here with us. And,
Yeah.
I always say that the best teachers are those that have gone through it and, are brought about because of that. And so you've got the big idea. From the pandemic stresses and aftershocks, the state of the world, many of us can't seem to shut off our brains. We experience a nearly consistent noise of fears and anxieties that can block our awareness of the present and peace of mind. But a highly effective technique can quieten our brains and getting them under control. Okay, all right, share, share, share.
Yeah, so this is where the science actually comes into play because these are ideas that have been known for 2,500 years.
Mm-hmm.
You know, mindfulness practitioners and other kinds of meditators have known about the power of meditation, the power of open awareness, and things like that. What I bring to this is, I think, a scientific perspective to say this is why they work. At least we're now beginning to understand why is it when you're in a state of open awareness, you are actually benefiting yourself and avoiding these traps, the chaos, right? And so my solution is quite simple. I tried to simplify it as much as possible, and that is living in the present moment, like I said before,
Yeah.
takes you out of the past conditioning that you experienced. Because if you have to base it on memory and that's all you've been able to experience before, that's how you're going to react in the future. So
Yeah.
if you can get out of that by being in the present, and we know from the science that being in the present actually bypasses memories.
Mm.
It's a different kind of processing, right? We're in a state where we're not accessing the past or the future.
Right.
It, and so
The
that's
gift of the
I
present.
think the gift of the present, right? But what science is telling us is that there's more to it because it is not only bypassing the past, but it's opening you up to more creative thinking. You
Right.
know, we know that when
Clarity.
you're in that clarity and openness and things like that, yeah.
So yes, if we have everything piled up on top of us, how do we know which thread is the truth? Because the chaos of past memory, what if coming up, and then where am I now? I call that the knowingness, knowing what you need to know when you need to know it, and that's when everything is aligned because you are in a state of peace and presence that it can open up to. Let's look at the next one. Why it matters. Mind storms keep us observed on the past, snagged on trying to protect ourselves from old injustices. Succumbing to the state of mind can derail your work, your lives, your relationships, keeping us from moving forward or finding happiness and peace. But the mind we're born with is anything but hectic, and that's what we need to find again. Much of what you've just covered, but do elaborate.
um, yeah, so if you think about when you were an infant, right, the same signals that you're getting now as an adult from the world, you were able to see, hear, touch,
Mm,
smell, etc. At the same time, you had all these internal signals from your organs telling you how things were working, your heart rate and your glucose level, but as an infant, we didn't have that distortion filter. And so we were able to just simply react to these signals. And within the first 2 years of life, you're able to learn to walk and talk and create and learn a language and learn about the world. It's an amazing, amazing creative mind that we
yeah,
have, right? And so where does it go? Well, it doesn't go anywhere. It's just, like I said, it just gets distorted. And so we need to understand what the problem is. And so chaos comes from the distortion that we build up over our developmental time. We begin to misunderstand the signals, all these signals that are coming from the outside and from the inside, right?
yeah,
And so that's the
static.
beginning. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, and if all of these things, when we're aware of it, we can actually, understand more on what we can do about it. So you're saying the key messages, neuroscience, expert yourself, shares 4 highly effective strategies of shutting down the uncontrollable thoughts and finding a place deep in our creative calm. Ruby is an essay, an easy way to remember how to get powerful techniques that mind back to its original thing. So, what does Ruby stand for?
Yeah, yeah. So this is what I tried to simplify things to the basic 4 steps, I think. And really, a lot of systems include these things. So the first step is to recognize. So
Mm-hmm.
it's an acronym for recognize, understand, balance, and implement. And so the first thing to recognize is what is the problem? And this is what I was trying to lay out. If you recognize that, in fact, you are born as a creative individual, but somehow things got distorted, the question is, how did it get distorted? So understanding that, what is it that happened to me that now I react this way?
Mm-hmm.
So when somebody says something, I get angry. Where does that come from?
Yeah.
So that second step of understanding is really important.
Mm-hmm.
And then the balance is once you figure this out, what the problem is, where you're at with these issues, to find balance in living in the moment versus living in the past and the future. So the argument is not to get rid of past and future things because we need to be able to live there as well.
Yeah.
It's finding balance between all these things. And so it's important to know when do I need to be present? When do I need to think about my family? When do I need to think about the future? Right? Finding that balance is critical. And then the final thing is implement, is to find the tool that can help you do all this,
Yeah.
right? And I tried all sorts of things. People try all sorts of things, yoga and
Mm-hmm.
meditation and exercise. There are a variety of things that can help. What I found for myself, the most effective way is just to simply practice this mindful living in the present, and that can take you out of that uncontrolled chaos to a
Yeah.
more controlled environment.
Well,
Yeah.
I think what it does is it allows you to extract from past experiences that is relevant in the moment that's going to help your future.
There's some of that going on,
Mm-hmm.
but in what I've studied, when you are living in the moment,
Mm-hmm.
you are not actually accessing the past.
Right.
You are simply responding dynamically to the circumstances that you're encountering at that moment,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's like your body knows. There's a wisdom in the body that
Yeah.
knows how to respond to these things. So it's not that you need to, it probably does at some level, but it's not like you're saying, oh, how did I do this?
Right.
You're simply responding spontaneously to what's coming at you. When you're
Right.
in that moment, there's a flow. People talk about flow,
Mm-hmm.
where you're just simply responding to life as it comes to you. Yeah.
And I think one of the things we don't pay attention to is that when we have been faced with a challenge and we've gone through it, we just carry on. I think it's a good idea to pause and go like, that was quite challenging. I'm observing how did I get through that? Well, I allowed, and with that came the clarity of what I needed to do at that moment. And it's like this is a practice that in allowing, that the wisdom of knowing what to do when you need to know how to do it is always going to be there. So it becomes a state of mind that your mind wants to go into, so your heart, soul, and spirit can speak to you.
No, absolutely. And this is, I think, another key point, that there's a certain wisdom that develops that the mind, the body has, that we need to be able to tap onto or tap into. Um, and it's not an intellectual
Yes.
exercise. It's
Yeah.
it's a more of a emotional, sort of
Intuitive.
intuitive kind of thing
Hmm.
that you learn and you respond that way. But it's a wisdom,
Yeah.
that's there.
Yes. I'm always
Um,
saying that the knowingness is the wisdom that is the compass that reflects with the heart and truth and allows the spirit into action for the mind to know what it needs to know when it needs to know it. We have a lot of
mm,
knowledge in our head, but if we don't know how to access the wisdom on how to use that
mm.
knowledge, we very often use that knowledge in the wrong way.
Yeah, that's wonderfully put. And I agree. And so knowledge for me as a scientist, it was very important,
Hmm.
knowing the facts about things. And so, I had a store of knowledge that I could access. But you also have this other part of yourself that is this sort of more intuitive uh, sense of knowingness, as you put it, that we need to learn to tap on into and listen to. Yeah.
You know, let's just talk a little bit, obviously about what you do, cognitive science, neuroscience,
Mm.
psychiatry, and all of that. But can we explain to people what cognitive science is?
Oh, yeah. So cognitive science is really it's the study of intelligent behavior. I mean, that's the basic definition, right? So if you're studying intelligent behavior, it can be in a human being, but it can also be or it can be in a robot.
Mm.
So whatever shows intelligent behavior, cognitive science is the study of how that comes about. What are the processes? What do you need to know in order to have that kind of intelligent behavior? So that's sort of science. But it also brings in so the psychology, the biology, but also the sort of computer science, all mixed in.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that
So it's an
that now
interesting.
I have to know, what do you feel about AI?
So yeah,
I'm actually
AI.
very intrigued by it. I think it's a
Yeah,
it's a tool for our evolution, that
yeah,
allows us to expand on ourselves. I think it's kind of almost like a companion in many ways that allows us to grow and understand things that sometimes we let our own either intellect or fear get in the way. But what do you feel about it?
yeah, yeah. We can't let fear get in the way. So I actually use AI for writing.
Hmm.
I'm writing a play at the moment, and it's an interesting way. You can give it a scene, and you
Yes,
can say, how would you develop this? And then it gives you all sorts of ideas, and then you can take those ideas and work them up on
right.
your own, right? But it's an idea generator. So
Mm,
that's the way I've been using it. I don't fear AI. I think it's a useful tool.
yes.
Now, it can be misutilized, or people will probably use it for the wrong things and misapply
Human
it,
nature,
and all
right?
that.
Yes, yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
human nature.
Hmm.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, it's like,
But I
the
think that
internet and the deep dark web, right? It's what we feed is going
exactly.
to grow, and we've got to look at ourselves that when things are misused, it is not the instrument, it's the person who is wielding that instrument that has made it
Absolutely.
evil. Like money isn't evil,
Yeah.
but in the wrong hands it is,
Right.
right? So I think it's
Yeah.
understanding it. I used it to edit my book, and very
Hmm.
often I use it when I'm writing something because I write out how I feel, but I find that, and I simply write in my tone, write in my
Hmm.
voice, and all it
Hmm.
does is expand on that voice.
Hmm.
And but I also, as I say, used it to edit my book because it got me and just was able to articulate certain areas that may I have got stuck on or didn't have the flow
Hmm.
with or missing that kind of word. And but I've also known people to use it, with depression or anxiety, having AI to talk to, where they don't want to burden their spouse or burden
Right.
other people, but they want something that is kind of rational that can reflect back or speak back to them. And it's a kind of a way of unraveling themselves with something that is kind of almost compassionate and but at the same time, rational and logical, that helps you see things from a different way because it's not someone's human intellect that's interfering with it. It's something else that's just data based, and they've found it's proven to help them quite considerably.
Oh, yes, yes. No, I mean the potential for good, I think, is
Yes.
is amazing, right? But the potential is also there, and so we just need to be careful.
Yes.
But I think
Mindful.
mindfully, yeah. Um, but I had colleagues in the who were developing robots with AI intelligence who could be what you would think would be empathetic
Yes.
behavior. They would see you smile, and they would
Yeah.
understand that you're smiling, and they would respond appropriately, right? And so if you put that in the context of a medical situation, like you were saying,
Yeah.
somebody who's lonely, who has this ability to interact with a robot that can be empathetic and compassionate, that's a wonderful tool.
Yes,
Yeah.
I have on this week a doctor who's talking about, how we need to change the medical system because right now
Mm.
it's supporting the insurance companies and drug companies and accountants, and it's not looking at a human being as a whole, but rather like a
Mm.
conveyor belt on a car manufacturing plant, right? And that how we need to change that and how AI can take the burden off a great deal with either diagnosis or with database, with a lot of stuff and integrating it in there because I think it's definitely here to stay. But I also think it's actually a kind of a great argument to ask the AI questions and see what comes back as your own cognitive thinking and kind of a reflection of. And so I think this is one of the things
You're
that
breaking up for me. Um, uh, I didn't quite hear
oh
your
no,
last
but
point.
sometimes in asking it a question is a kind of a feedback on your own reflection of how you feel
Mm.
that maybe we can't
Mhm.
see it for ourselves when it becomes part of that. But as human nature is, we create a great deal of the chaos around us. A lot of that comes into because we've bought into what society dictates makes us important, as to understanding the importance of self and the reason why we're here. Um, we're in a hell of a lot of turmoil in the world at the present moment. Calmer
Yeah.
heads are not prevailing. Nobody's going into that space
Mm.
time to think and feel. And that ripple effect of anxiety. We've come out of COVID, we've got all these wars going on, we've got hate crimes going on, we've got politicians just throwing mud at each other all the time. How do we bring ourselves down into that center amongst that exterior chaos? Because sometimes it can be very hard when it's like a pulsation around you.
Yeah, no, this is again a wonderful question. And I've thought about that a lot because, you know, the conclusion is that I can only really be responsible for my own behavior.
Yeah.
Um, as much as I want to be helpful to the world, I try to do as much as I can, but I am not responsible. And therefore, I try to calm myself, and hopefully that then gets reflected in the people around me, and then that can ripple across
Yeah.
other people and so on. I think that that's probably the best thing that we can do. Take care of ourselves, and then let that ripple through as much as possible. Because if you start thinking, about the world, it'll overwhelm you, all these
Yes.
things that are going on, because you're helpless. There's not very
Mm.
much that you can do about a war in Ukraine or a war in Israel, um, except hold the people in your heart
Yeah.
with compassion.
I'm always
Yeah.
white lighting, while you're sending that loving white light out there. And I 100%
That's
agree
right.
with you is that, while we're looking and also pointing fingers, it's the politicians, it's the this ones, it's the that one, there's three fingers pointing at us saying, where's our accountability, responsibility? What are we going to do about it? And I say, if we want love, we have to be the love. If we want peace, we've got to be the peace. And that collectively
Absolutely.
then brings about peace. But we're constantly looking on the outside for solutions and not on the inside. What's your suggestion to people to turn their eyes in, and that without guilt and without blame or shame, which very often comes with spending energy and time on yourself, it's how important it is for us to go in and let go of everything, because that's kind of where we need to nurture our ego a bit, where we need to spend loving care on ourselves, even be a little narcissistic as children can be, because if we don't fortify ourselves, how can our cup runneth over? So what would be your
Yeah.
suggestions other than,
Yeah.
stillness, etc., but challenging those outside elements to bring about our inside?
Yeah, no, I mean, like I said, I think you should try to do as much as you can, and I try to help others as much as I can. Um, but the one thing that we should remember is that we're not totally individualized beings. that there's actually a connection between us and others, and between us and, you
Hmm.
know, the world, the nature, it's like that. And uh, to me, that's the greatest illusion, is we're separate beings from the from the planet and from others, when in fact we're not. And so when we work on ourselves, I actually think that it does ripple to the way others then behave, because we are interconnected. We just don't know that. We
Yes.
don't realize how much that is going on. Right.
Right. When if
So my
mhm.
no, go ahead.
No, no, it's just like if we're a choir, every one of our voices is important in that choir. We've got to harmonize, but we first got to fine tune our own voice, don't we? So please continue.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I just think that it um now I lost track of
Oh,
what I
sorry,
was going to
sorry.
say, but
Uh,
uh,
it is a challenge. I know it's a challenge. I know it's a challenge to switch off all the chatter, the expectation from other people, the dictation from society. What will people think? Will people think I'm selfish? Should I be so self-centered? All of these things in your what I call in your self-discovery and recovery of finding yourself that space where you feel safe and creative and at peace. It is a journey to do that. And sometimes you do have to close doors on things, on careers, on people, etc. And that can be hard for people. But in a sense, in the long term, it's essential, isn't it?
oh yeah, so yeah, care of yourself above all,
Mm,
you know. And one thing from science that really helped me understand all this is that there's a function in the brain that we call the interpreter,
mm,
which was an idea that was conceived in the 1970s to explain why is it that people lie so much,
mm,
make up stories so easily about themselves, about others, and so on. And it turns out that in fact what we have is a way to try to maintain order in our world by
mm.
making up stories that make things coherent and harmonious, right?
Right.
And sometimes we need to lie to ourselves in order to feel
Yeah.
that there's harmony in the world. And that to me is interesting, because if we do have that function, then part of it is becoming aware of it.
You're right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Back to
yeah,
understanding and awareness, right? When you open up to those channels and try to understand, and the other thing is, compassion and empathy. When you have that for yourself and have it for others, you want to understand more, right? You
yes,
you want to be
yeah,
aware more because that awareness brings about comprehension of understanding and compassion for other people and what they're going through instead of judgment.
yeah. So when I was going through my anxiety problems, I was totally focused on myself. It was like my perspective was me,
Yes.
and how I was feeling. And when I learned to calm that down, it was really fascinating that I began to then see others. I
Hmm.
began to see that in fact there were other people around me, that they were also reacting in a certain way to the way I was reacting, and I became
Yeah.
more sensitive to that.
Yes.
And so when you start finding that opening, you realize that there's this other connection going on with other individuals, and you have to be sensitive to that as well.
Right. We're all looking for
Mm.
those good, good, good vibrations, right? To ride that wave. And again, is that we look for outside people to kind of lead the way for us. But I believe that inspiration begets invitation. And that, when you're inspired by somebody, where you could feel the different. They may look different. I know there's something different about you. You look different. And really what it is they feel different. The aura, the vibration has changed, the more at peace with self. It really then kind of triggers an invitation, even if it's not obvious in ourselves. I want to feel like that, right?
Mhm.
So being around
Yes.
people like that is really important because it is that
Yes. Yeah.
invitation to like, if he feels so good, why, what can I do to get there?
Yeah. I remember that feeling when I went through 4 years of meditation training with a teacher. And during that period of anxiety that I was experiencing, and every time I talked to her, went into the room to talk to her, I felt that calmness in
Uh-huh.
her, that I thought, I want that. You
Yes.
know,
Yes.
you feel it when there's somebody like that, and you realize that's a human being. They've been able to do
Mhm.
it. I can do it as well. And that was very helpful therapeutically for me just to see somebody like that.
Yes.
So
And then,
you become in tune. Yeah,
but as you become that calmness, then you're that beacon of light for other people. And that's, that
yeah,
beautiful ripple effect, isn't it? Is that,
yeah.
love begets love, peace begets peace, calmness begets calmness. And it's that, we say, oh, I'm only one person, I can't make a difference. Well, you can make a difference in your life and then in the
Hmm.
lives around you. And then the more they step into themselves, they become that light for someone else, and so
Yeah.
on and so on. And so it's never sell yourself short. You are important and we need you.
We're all important, I think, and
Exactly.
yes, no, absolutely, and um, yeah, it's unfortunate that some people don't realize that until it's too late, and this is part of what my motivation for writing this kind of book was because I felt like I've learned all this stuff. I
Mhm.
need to be able to share it
Yeah.
with others so that they can see that in fact they can do it,
Right.
right? And so this is my way of trying to do that. And I know
And
the way you
yeah.
do your podcast
Mhm.
is kind of similar.
And again, all we can do is put out the information. How people take it is up to them. And maybe, I've got some self-help books where it's what do I need to know today? And I can just open up and there is that chapter, and that is what I'm needing to
Hmm.
know today. It's very apropos. So some people can read the book from beginning to end and get it and go linearly, and other people it is like, oh, I've opened the book on this right now. This is clearly something I need to address. So there's no really wrong way, is there? It's
That's
just
right.
like your inner soul will tell you what it is you need to know. And the book is just one of those tools that in your time of need will show you what you need to do.
Absolutely. I am a strong believer in that need it, it'll show up.
Yes,
It
yes. But
because it's happened.
yep, it's happened.
Yeah, no, it's happened to me several times. So
Yeah,
when I'm at a point in my life, crossroad,
yeah,
something shows up that tells me.
yes.
Yeah,
Go left, go right, go straight. Yes.
right.
But there is like a very great point there is that you have to allow. You have to allow that something to come, to give it the space to show up, to tell you which
Yes,
direction to go in. And that, if you've got people honking behind you, kind of just move over and wait until you know your direction, right? Because, we're so busy, but where do I need to go? Where do I need to go? Well, you're not going to know in that state of being. So, just calm down and be present and, okay, that's where I need to go. And that's something we don't always allow ourselves to do, right? We don't allow ourselves the space to listen to the answer.
yes, absolutely. It's a frenetic world sometimes.
Mhm.
We're bombarded by so many things, and we need to be able to filter things out and take responsibility to find a space to sit and be quiet sometimes. It's an important practice to do that. Absolutely.
Very important practice, folks. And it's okay for you to turn around to other people and say, sorry, this is my time. This is my space. Or, sorry, folks, I have to go out for a walk at the present moment, or I need to go and get a breath of fresh air. If this is what you need in that moment to decompress, to center yourself before you come back to that meeting, come back to screaming kids, come back to angry husband, or whatever the case is take that time out. Because why do we see volatility? Is that somebody is all angry or upset, and then you're rising to be above them, and it's one up, one up, one up, and now you've got a volcanic eruption. So
Right.
somebody has to calm down and bring everything down. And sometimes if it means time out, sorry, this meeting is time out, 10-minute break, everybody. I don't want you talking to each other. I want you to go and take some time for yourself for the moment and come back
No,
with calmness.
no, and discipline is important
Yeah.
in doing that, right? And that's something I learned very early on that you need to discipline yourself to say I'm gonna spend 5 minutes every day just calming myself before I go off to do anything. And what's interesting is that you do this over and over. Eventually, it becomes just part of your
Yeah.
life. You know,
You don't think
it's
it, you
not
feel it,
anything
you
you.
know it. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But that's what we want to get to. And, practice makes perfect. And basically, what we're doing by being cognitive of those practices, we're reprogramming the mind
Yes.
into that this serves me and the body better. But we've got to do it over and over again consciously before it becomes just a part of our new patterning.
Yes. And it's like any skill that you learn. If you learn to play the piano, you put a lot of effort initially
Mm-hmm.
into doing it. And then little by little, it becomes automatic and it becomes joyful. It becomes, something you want to do, et cetera. The same thing with these kinds of practices. Yeah, they can
Yeah.
actually become very joyful.
I mean, we literally just did a show on what joy is, and joy is that inner abundance of wanting to share, wanting to care,
Mm,
wanting to illuminate
mm,
someone else. And then that joy of seeing somebody else light up,
mm,
becomes a joy back to us. And it's like people are chasing joy in all the wrong places. And instead of
yeah.
understanding it's in our participation, it's in our giving.
Yes, yes, absolutely. That's wonderful. Yeah, yeah.
And we certainly need a little joy in our lives at the present moment. So perhaps we should be a little more giving. Now, we see the word neuroscience being thrown around a great deal, and a lot of people talk about it, but
Mm.
it's never completely explained. I know for a lot of people, it's like, well, what's this neuroscience? What is it?
it, it's really is the study of the brain,
Hmm.
primarily study of the brain from a biological perspective. So you're trying to understand, this thing that we had, this 3 pound instrument that we have that does all these things, gives us joy, gives us pleasure, gives us sadness and fear and all that. Trying to understand biologically how that happens. What is the machinery that's doing all this stuff? And then how does it connect to the psychology?
Yeah, the mind.
Yeah. So
Hmm.
yeah, brain mind sort of
Hmm.
relationship, and then how does it connect to your body, right?
Yes.
So neuroscience is all that. It's trying to understand behavior from all those perspectives.
Which do you feel governs more, the programming of the
Hmm.
mind or the brain? Because sometimes I'm not sure they're in sync with each other or they're in conflict with each other. Can the mind be more powerful than the brain, or can the brain overpower the mind?
Yes. Yes.
On
So
both
in
ways?
it
Mm,
it actually isn't. It goes both ways.
mhm.
Whoops. Um, Sorry. Let me put this back on.
I got emphatic there.
It's um, it's an interactive process. So what the way we think of it as a neuroscientist, you think of the hardware, which
Hmm.
is creating the mind.
Hmm.
So when the hardware changes, it changes the mind. But when the mind changes, it also changes the hardware. And this
Hmm.
is something that's unique in human beings, that how we think literally rewires the brain.
Ah.
The brain is plastic.
Hmm.
It actually learns, and learning is this rewiring of the hardware so that we're different after we learn something, right? And so how that interactivity works is part of what I studied, what I was interested in, that
No,
connection.
that's fascinating because quite honestly, if the patterning is a doctrine of being brought up of hate or differences or the judgment, that's going to change the way the brain works. But if the
Yes.
brain is if the hardware, I mean, if the software, the mind is brought up with caringness, kindness, and consideration, but that also, I feel, brain and mind, yes, the mechanics of it all, but I feel that unless the heart, soul, and spirit, the intellect, is not listened to, both of these things are going to be confused. Because I think you
Yes.
have to feel your knowledge, you have to feel your programming and your brain, because then that sets it up with more compassion and empathy and what the thought should be. What do you think of that?
Yeah. So I think there are aspects of the brain mind that we think of as emotion. There are systems there that give us those feelings of emotion, and I see it as simply another signal that gets integrated with our intellect and with the physical body signals and all that. So we need to listen to all of them.
Yes.
We need to listen to the emotion, the intuition, the physical body, the intellect. When it works perfectly, it's all in sync, it's all
Yes.
working wonderfully. But then it
When it
gets out of
works
sync
together.
when it
Yeah.
works together,
Yeah.
right? And sometimes it doesn't. And so we listen more to one than the other, and then we get into problems.
I mean, when we talked about, you talked about it earlier about being in flow. Right?
Mhm.
When we look at the body, the oxygen and the blood, and the energy, chi has to be in flow constantly through our body. Where it stops, it creates problems. So, our mind, if we don't use it, we lose it. The brain can
Mhm.
also kind of come to it because it needs to learn all the time. It needs to constantly evolve. It can become stagnant. So we need to really find our rhythm in life. What is our flow in life? Because then we're really incorporating the whole of us, aren't we?
Yes, yes, that's absolutely true. And going back a little bit to the idea that the brain mind changes, the hardware software change gives us hope, in fact, so that people shouldn't think just because I'm 70 years old or 60 years old or 50 years old, I can't change the way I am.
Mm,
No, your brain is constantly changing. That rewiring is always going on until you die. And
right.
so it's possible to undo and unlearn a lot of the conditioning, a lot of the bad habits that you develop.
Hmm.
They actually can be undone with some
Right.
effort. So,
Choice and effort, absolutely. Now we've got certain people that, kind of born with certain gifts, artists,
mhm,
musicians, writers, speakers, whatever the gift is that they've been given, it is like no matter what, that is their strength, that is their forte, that's their meaningful purpose, their gift in life. Can Even if it's been suppressed for a period of time, begs to come back out again. So is
mhm.
that part of something in the brain that is so dominant that it will always raise its head to be heard?
Hmm.
Or is that a heart soul thing?
Yeah, yeah. Uh, from a science perspective, it's hard to know because we are born genetically with certain predispositions, with certain abilities, right? They're
Aptitudes,
just
yeah,
given.
right.
Yeah. And then we take those and we grow, develop them and so on, or we ignore them, right?
Right.
But so part of it is our genetics.
Hmm.
Part of it, however, genetics is not destiny. And so part of it is the interaction of our genetics with our environment. So if you have the predisposition for music and you're in an environment where music is played, your parents expose you to all sorts of music, then it'll grow. It'll feed that energy. If you're in an environment where there is no music and nobody plays any kind of instrument, then it'll inhibit it, it'll suppress it, right? That initial impulse. So the brain mind responds to your environment.
Mm.
And so if you put it in an enriched environment, it will be an enriched mind. If you put it in a deprived environment, it'll be a deprived mind. So we adapt to the environment that we live in, you know.
And that's
So
why we really need to look at the environment that we place ourselves in. And, you know,
absolutely.
uh, we're talking about, social media and the algorithm of it. And I'm
Mm,
saying what we gain going back to like with the AI, if you're going to feed all that hate rhetoric out there or the sensationalism, then that's what the algorithm is going to keep giving you. But if you choose to be supportive and interactive and you choose to put out content that is inspirational or uplifting, then the algorithm will give you that. Well, we're the same type of algorithm. What we put out is what's going to be matched. So we've got to be very conscious of who we are and what we're putting out. Because that's what we're going to meet there. So hate will beget hate, but love can beget love. And that's up to us, right?
yes, absolutely. So not only do we mirror our environment, but our environment mirrors us,
Mm,
you know.
yes.
And so yeah, we need to be careful about what we choose to let
Yeah.
in and so on.
Yes, it's good to be discerning, right? It's
Yeah.
it's not walls, it's boundaries. And those
Yes.
boundaries are energetic boundaries where, you want people in the same frequency, in the same vibe tone, because then that not only are you going to get each other, you're going to listen and support and care for each other. If you've got
Yes.
people on that lower vibration, um, you could be that inspiration that may help them rise, but their journey is their journey. How they get out of where they are and rise up is part of the whole journey of being here? Are they
Yeah.
going to use it as an excuse to stay in the hate rhetoric because it's easy and I can blame everyone else? Or am I going to do the work to leave that behind and rewire the brain into more loving compassion and caring, where I become more of service to myself
Yes.
and to humanity? But I
Yeah.
think being aware where you're at, I'm angry all the time. Well, what's making you angry?
Yes.
Why aren't you
Right.
dealing with the root cause of it? The anger is just the emotion of it. What's the root cause of the anger?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And sometimes it can be environmental, and that
Yeah,
is, the people around you.
yeah,
And the best way is to take yourself out of that environment and put yourself in a new environment where you don't have all the cues that trigger
yes,
things, right? And then you learn to respond a different way. It's almost like addiction, and I know you're very familiar with addiction, but addiction is just that. You learn to
yes,
all these cues in a certain
yes,
environment, and the cues trigger this response of wanting,
yeah,
the drug.
yeah,
But so taking yourself out of that environment can
yeah.
help you. Yeah.
Escapism,
Yeah.
right? Addiction, I can't deal with it. I can't deal with it. Let me just numb myself without the alcohol, drugs, or, other forms of self-abuse. Sometimes it's self-punishment, right? And it's like, well, why? I had someone on last week about unalcoholing her life and not really realizing she was an alcoholic. Her husband drank, she drank, and then didn't realize how much that she needed to drink to suppress an abuse that had happened to her as a child.
Hmm.
And it's only
Hmm.
when finally she got herself in an environment, actually, which the church environment, not so much religion, but the church
Hmm.
community, and started working with the homeless, that it
Hmm.
took her out of the environment that she was in and put her in another environment for her to address her alcoholism, right? To be aware
Yeah.
that you actually was that. So, yes, I think it's, I always say to people when you're on your self discovery, it's okay to say to people, I'm going to be absent for a while. I'm on a journey. Don't take it personally. I'll get
Yeah.
back to you. And if you don't get back to them, it means that you're meant to leave them behind. And if you do, and they recognize who you are today, that's wonderful. And if they don't, then it's time to move on. But we've got to give ourselves those boundaries of, I need this time to hear in to know what I need out.
Absolutely. And the other thing that's really insidious about addiction is that we know that the reward system of our brain, right, the dopamine gets
Yes.
triggered by drugs. But what's interesting is that that system actually begins to anticipate things, begins to
Mm,
predict things, and it's the anticipation that actually triggers the dopamine, right?
mm,
So if you think you've done drugs with a certain friend all the time, the anticipation of seeing that friend
mm,
will trigger that emotional wanting of the
mm,
drug, right? And so you have to also deal with that kind of mindset, the
yeah.
expectations and those kinds of feelings as well.
And it really does require you to take the journey and do the work. Right.
Yes.
And,
Yeah.
we've got to actually understand, why is this repetitive? Why do I keep repeating the same thing? And it's like,
Hmm.
got to get down to the root cause of it. And, what's the payoff? What's the
Hmm.
payoff of keep doing it? And is
Hmm.
it really serving you? And if we're not willing to invest in ourselves and really participate in our own journey, then we're just making excuses. And those excuses can only last so long, before the price has to be paid one way or the other.
Yes, that's true. That's so true. Yeah.
So this book rather, is addressing that chaotic mind and how to address our anxiety. And I think actually when you think about it, anxiety is that first trigger, that first thing. You get anxious about certain people
Hmm.
around you, anxious at school, can I get my A? Anxious at, can I please my parents? Anxious, do friends love me? All of this anxiety, I think something is like there without us even realizing all through our life. So would you say that's the first step that we need to look at, is where is our anxiety coming from?
I think that's important. That's helpful. And then the next thing is to actually, what I realize is that my anxiety had an underlying fear to it,
Mm,
and so getting to what is the fear underneath the anxiety was important for me. And so I finally realized that my fear was of being judged by people
Mm,
and being seen as less than what I thought I was, right?
yes.
That was the big fear. And so once
Pretty
I
common
got
one,
that,
yep.
yeah, once I got that though, the anxiety sort of diminished. So yeah, fear and anxiety work hand in hand.
Yeah,
And uh,
yeah. Yeah, if the anxiety is the voice of fear. And
absolutely.
it's unreasonable because sometimes you just, I remember past clients I've had, and it's like, what are you afraid of? I don't know, just fear. I'm just fear. I'm afraid of fear. And they're afraid of being fearful. So, and they're being fearful about being afraid of being fearful. And so it was it's trying to break the loop
Yeah,
to a point where let's identify where the fear really is coming from, because
yeah.
then we can break the cycle. But for some people, it's just such a perpetual loop that they don't know where the beginning or the end is.
Yeah, and for a lot of people, maybe they would need help to
Yeah,
find that, and so going to a psychotherapist, a psychologist, or a counselor, can be a very useful thing to help identify, because sometimes there are deeply rooted things that we
yeah.
don't really can get at. Um, so take an opportunity to find somebody that can help you. It's important.
You hear all the time somebody, having their life and everything else, and then around 40 or 50, something happening that brings back an old memory that had been
Mm.
suppressed, that now completely takes control over their life. And it's that we can only suppress things for so long, subliminally or consciously, whatever,
Yeah,
before it will find its way back out, and we are going to have to deal with it, because otherwise it's a part of that brain, right, that's always dictating. So,
yeah.
resistance is futile, and you can run as fast as you like, but you'll always catch up with yourself.
Well, I always say that our brain tends towards health,
Mm,
and what it needs sometimes is just a little push in that direction, right? So instead of resisting it or
yeah,
fighting it, try to give it a little push towards health, and it'll find its way there, because I think, like I said, the basic core nature is one of you know um, health and
yeah.
well-being.
I've got a niece that's had a brain injury, fell down flight of concrete stairs, literally cracked her head open, and
Oh no.
it's still a year later, and she's trying to run a business, but it's
Mm,
much harder for her now.
mm,
Things are slower, some things are overwhelmed, but she's working through it. And my daughter works with people with brain injuries, and but what
mm,
she does is certain events, painting, bowling, this, that, etc., that can help you be engaged in
mm.
something joyful. And she looks at that as kind of being able to reignite the brain. For some people, they'll never get it all the way back. The damage
Yeah,
is physically done. But for
yeah.
other people, it's like if you can attach to something that's stimulating and joyful, it helps ignite the brain to want more of that type of productive joy. So, it's never completely give up, right? Even if you maybe not optimized at your 100% as you were before, we can always function at a certain level, um, and don't give up on yourself or on anybody else that you may know going through it.
Oh yeah, I think that's the worst thing that you can do is give up on yourself. I think
Yeah.
that as long as there's life, I think you should fight, and
No matter the age, as you pointed out, it doesn't matter how old you are.
it doesn't matter how old you
No.
are. There's
If you're
still
still
hope.
breathing, there's still
That's right.
hope. Definitely.
That's right. Yeah.
So, I mean, was it through your anxiety, through your studies that, kind of said, okay, it's time to write a book on it?
Right. So the fact that I was able to get out of what I thought was a very
Mm,
deep sort of anxiety syndrome, and be able to see it in perspective and realize that in fact, um, there was an easy solution to it. Not an easy, but there was a
mm,
solution to it. So it got me thinking about all sorts of other things, and how to address all these other problems that we face, the obsessiveness, or the heartbreaks, and all that kind of stuff. And what I came down to is the idea that, trying to simplify all that, I came down to two basic things that I think people need to do to move from what is a chaotic mind to a less chaotic mind.
mm.
one is, I think, to learn to love yourself. You need to
Mm,
accept yourself for who you are. I call it self-parenting in the book. You need to
mm,
do a lot of kind of
yeah.
self-parenting, and that gets you to a stable level of being. And then the next thing is to learn to live more in the present,
Mm,
to try to avoid so much of the past, living in the past or living in the future. Live in the moment, and that clarifies all sorts of things for me. It just opened up a whole sort of world for me, and I realized, oh my gosh, but you have to, keep at it and practice. And then
yes.
the last thing I say is trust the process.
Hmm.
You know?
Yes.
Oh,
Don't give up, don't give in, persist. Right?
yes.
For some people, there may be certain parts of it that's easy, quick to get through. You've got it. For some people, it may be that's a difficult part for me. I'm just having a hard time grasping at it. Don't
Yeah.
compare with others, right?
Oh,
Don't
yeah.
even compare with yourself. It's like just pay attention. Maybe sometimes put something down, take a breath, go for a walk, come back, pick it up, and see it from a different point of view, right?
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
but be persistent, be patient, and be loving towards yourself.
And there are times when you think nothing is happening. You've been doing this and trying this and that and the other, and nothing is happening. But you keep at it. At some point, there's an opening, and you realize, oh, I'm not as reactive as I was
Right.
before, right? And
Yes.
and and that then motivates you to keep at it. So those little victories, I think, are important.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think very much pay attention to those little victories. Observe.
yeah,
This does work. So
yes,
you're rather like that algorithm. I'm going to put more energy into that,
yeah,
because it's clearly working. And it's you're giving a great baseline for people to apply, but how they apply it and how they use it in their life, of course, is up to them. And again, I don't believe in one size fits all, but there is always a common denominator that anybody can take, and it will manifest in the way that it's meant to, for the way they use it. But if we're not willing to try,
yeah,
then we're not willing to grow. And if you're not happy where you're at, it's up to you to find your happiness, not anyone else to make you happy, right? Nobody else to complete you or define you.
hmm,
We want people to complement you in the energy that they're in. Um, but the redefinition of you is up to you and the journey that you take. And your book is about you know making sure the brain and the mind is cohesive with each other, supporting each other, allowing each other to grow, but looking at chaos and anxiety and the
yeah,
fear of where it comes from, addressing it. Don't be so fearful to address it. You're not
right,
reliving it, right?
yes,
You're just like a hypnotized person, hypnosis. They'll put you through. You're not there. You're just spectating,
yeah,
right? And
yeah,
sometimes we need to spectate the things that hurt us,
yeah.
and to go, but I'm not that person anymore. Look where I am now, and look where I potentially could be, instead of focusing on the pain of the past.
Yeah, no, and I think it's important to reiterate what you said about there are many solutions, and you need to find what works for you,
Yes,
right?
yes,
So I think that that's the important thing. Just keep trying, keep looking at how it works for you, whether it makes any sense for you, and whether it's working for you. Mm,
well, I'm a great advocate for books being bought, because I think it's a gift that keeps on giving. You could read a book once and then you can go back and read it again, and it's a
yeah.
totally different story.
Yes.
And again, as I said with your book, they could read it from beginning to end, or they could read certain parts of it and go, okay, what do I need to know today? And it may be this, not that, right? Be open
Mm.
to receive and sync with the book. But, we're in the festive season at the time of giving, where we all give gifts to one another. So if you know somebody going through anxiety, somebody's life is chaotic right now for a change they're going through, a change that they're wanting to go through, this is a great gift of just some skills and tools that they can apply to their life that can help them navigate to that next stage, or get out of a situation that they're in. So look at it as a great gift to give someone that really needs it, and maybe even a book that you need in your own household because you didn't know it was so chaotic. So,
Right.
how do people get hold of the book, and how do they find you?
Sure. So the book is being sold on Amazon and Barnes and Noble and a variety of bookstores. I have a website. It's called theunencumberedmind.com. that people can go and check out some of my other writings. So yeah, that's
And just for the people listening, if the encumbered mind, you have some people sometimes where language is the second. So the dash UNENCUMBERED /mind.com.
yeah.
The encumbered mind, it's that's what we want to do. We want the mind to be able to breathe. We want it to step into that creativity. We want it to feel like it's empowered to take the next step. That when an opportunity knocks at the door, we can actually see it and believe that it is there for us, because we haven't got in our own way. We haven't brought the anxiety or the fear, or I'm not enough, or I couldn't do it. Who do I think I am? All of that dialogue has been put into one great big package and sent to Mars. It's not with you anymore. Or that if it comes up, you know exactly how to deal with it. Right? It's like, I see you, I care for you, I know that that's there, but it's all right, we've got this, let's do it together. So there are ways of doing things. So this book is a great gift idea for the season, folks. And it's one good one to have in the household where everybody can pick it up, or maybe everybody can do a chapter or a page and go, what we need to address right now, and have it be a catalyst to an open dialogue with one another. Gee, what a concept, talking to one another. Right? So the book is there for that reason. So thank you for writing it, and and sharing it with us here today. It's, as I said, the best teachers are those that have gone through it, because the tools and the skills that you've learned, you're now sharing with other people for them to apply to their life. And they're not just theorized, the things that you've practiced. So therefore, you've mixed the theory and the practice together into something that can really work. So it's up to us, folks, on what are we going to feed and what are we going to do. And it's there for you. It's there for you when you're ready. So don't forget to reach out to him, theencumberedmind.com. He's also on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and you can also theresearch.com, Jaime at Pineda. They can look at the research there as well, and reach you for your email, jpineda at ucsd.edu. And if you've got any questions for him. So this is what it's about, helping one another with the wisdom that we've gathered along the way. So thank you so much, Jaime, for sharing today.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to talk to you and to your listeners. I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Us too. So until next time, folks, don't forget to pause, take a breath, and look at why you're feeling so chaotic, why you're feeling so anxious, what is the stem of it. Don't be afraid to take the time to investigate and take the time for yourself. Until next time, bye for now. We hope that you enjoyed the show. There are so many more for you here on selfdiscoverywisdom.com. Just go to the podcast tag at the top there and you will see all the many genres and all 3,000 shows ready for your listening. We are here to serve you, to help you on your journey of life, and we know that through inspiration it begets invitation. We are supported by you, the listeners, and those that we interview. Anything that you can spare us in donation would be greatly accepted, and we do hope that you enjoy the next show.